George Harrison, labeled the Quiet Beatle, was far from quiet upon taking a closer listen. While George was the youngest Beatle, one might say that he offered the most profound, mature, wise music out of all the Beatles, and he honestly might be my favorite Beatle, although that's probably an impossible choice. How's it going, people? Hope you're doing well. This is my last video in the Art of Humanity miniseries, which I never intended it for it to be a mini series, and yet here we are. Honestly, this channel could be dedicated to the Beatles. I love them so much. Anyone who's a fan of the Beatles will be able to tell you how much George Harrison grew as a songwriter as the Beatles developed throughout their careers. Unfortunately, like the other videos I've done in this mini series, George Harrison and the Beatles kind of reverted to their old ways on the White Album, and so he didn't have too many tracks on the project. However, even though he still only had a few, he did shine on this project with one of the most memorable songs on the album, and really in the Beatles' entire discography, with While My Guitar Gently Weeps. This was the first Beatles song to outright feature a non-Beatle, and Eric Clapton, who was on guitar in this song, and that's supremely memorable in its own right. It's so crunchy and I don't know, it fits the composition very well. I'm not a music genius, but it fits the composition so well. But ultimately, what's more important about this track is that it serves as the perfect launchpad for why George Harrison might fit the Art of Humanity bill the best out of any of the Beatles. And the reason for that is Harrison's uncanny ability to take micro and macro topics, coalescing them all into a commentary on his own life. A great example of this is found in the double meaning of the lyrics in this song. Those are the love there that's sleeping. I always sort of guessed that this was reflective of the Beatles fracturing at the time and George's thoughts on it, but it was confirmed to me upon doing research for this video. What I didn't know, however, was that through George's fantastic Eastern philosophical lens, he's talking about universal love there that's sleeping, the possibility of there being a common love shared throughout humanity, and I love that. I never guessed that about this song, but it just makes it so much more fantastical to me, so much more mystical and hopeful, really. Talking about love, enter the song Something off of Abbey Road. This is one of the most beautiful love songs you'll ever hear, I feel, and it goes to show with Frank Sinatra calling it one of the best, if not the best, love song ever. And what's more is John Lennon called it potentially the best song off of Abbey Road, which is incredibly high praise. I mean, you have Here Comes the Sun, which George also did, but you've also got Come Together, and you've got the Abbey Road medley, among other things. Whether or not it was intended for George's wife at the time, George said of the song, "All love is part of a universal love. When you love a woman, it's the God in her that you see." And I love this. Loving anything really is an acknowledgement of its own existence. Loving everything all at once for whatever it is. You know, this Sprite can here. I love Sprite, but it's acknowledgement of Sprite's existence. It's acknowledge of the universe placing Sprite into my life, if you know what I mean. However, George's best song, A Bad Existence, it shows off his true talent and him being really tuned in, if you will, is the track Blue Jay Way off of Magical Mystery Tour. With perhaps the Beatles' best music video to accompany it, I feel this is their best song in their psychedelic period. And it's sort of ironic too, as George and his friends that he was waiting for in this song shortly after traveled to Ashbury, Haight, the hippie capital in San Francisco in the 60s, and they were all too disappointed with what they saw. Author Ian McDonald often quotes this as George's end to psychedelics and psychedelia as a whole. It's so fitting too how this song is so dark and mysterious, like that feeling of trying to stay awake for a certain reason after an excruciating day. It's so fitting too how this track marked the beginning of the Beatles' new outlook of peace of mind, so to speak, and how it can come from within rather than external materials or factors like drugs or anything along those lines. And I think that it would be sort of unfair to have this only be about George's work with the Beatles And so All Things Must Pass would be a world famous song, or at least more famous song, had it been recorded and released under the Beatles' name. It was rehearsed in Let It Be studio sessions, and it never made the album, obviously, and so it was released on George's debut solo album, All Things Must Pass. Like While My Guitar Gently Weeps, this song serves as such a great example to George's masterful songwriting, his lyricism. It's a generous reminder of the fact that good things will come and go, and he's reflecting at the Beatles passing all at the same time. That's one of the main reasons why I like George so much, how it's clear to see that he took inspiration from his own life, thought about it, meditated about it, and from there looked for ways that it could help other people and help himself too. I'll leave y'all with this from All Things Must Pass. If only I had George's voice. Now the darkness only stays the night time. In the morning it will fade away. Daylight is good at arriving at the right time. It's not always gonna be this gray.